The strongest solar storm in recorded history didn't hit Earth in 1859. It came 89 years earlier, almost completely unnoticed. September 1770, a small village in Japan. A man pours water across his own roof. He believes it's about to rain fire. The sky above him is blood red, not just on the horizon like a sunset, everywhere, across the entire night sky. Across Japan, people pour out of their homes into the streets, staring upward. None of them has ever seen anything like it. And even by day, the red doesn't fully vanish behind the sun. It returns, night after night, 9 times in a row. At the shrines, the dancing and praying never stops for a moment. People believe the gods themselves are furious with them. Some hide in cellar pits and pull the wooden hatches shut behind them. Others simply stand outside and wait. Panic runs from door to door through the narrow alleys. Only the distant temple stays still, bathed in deep red. An old man just stares upward in silence and shakes his head slowly. He has never seen anything like this before. The red glow stretches across the whole country, from Hokkaido in the north all the way to Kyushu and on into China. 9 consecutive nights of this. The famous storm of 1859, by comparison, lasted only 2 brief phases. Only one person truly writes down, in careful detail, exactly what he sees happening in the sky that night. A priest living in Kyoto. He wants to measure precisely where in the sky the red light burns brightest of all. Because what he sees defies everything he thought he knew about the night sky. The red reaches almost to the Milky Way. And within the red field itself, faint white streaks flicker in and out, something that normally only occurs near the poles. He carefully notes angles, exact times, star positions. Without knowing it, he's writing the single most important record of this whole event. Around him, panic spreads through the crowd. Priests argue heatedly over what sign the sky could possibly be sending them. Just months earlier, one of the worst droughts Japan had ever endured. For many people, everything now seems connected somehow. But one other observer thinks further than the rest of them. He notes, quite plainly, no fire, no smoke, only light. 2 decades later, the whole event appears in a Japanese book, recorded there as a miracle, not as a natural event. And then the entire story goes quiet for the next 250 years, forgotten, sitting behind a closed and locked gate. The problem was never really that no one was watching the sky. The problem was what people back then thought worth recording. At the imperial court, other signs matter far more. The sudden appearance of comets, sacred rituals, the country's devastating droughts. The official chronicle does technically mention the red sky, but only in a single passing line off to the side, because at the very same time, real unrest looms across the country. A storm, an earthquake. The sky is just one omen among many. One official quietly links it to the ongoing political crisis and is coldly ignored by absolutely everyone else around him. His report is simply filed away without comment, and there it stays, untouched, for the next 2 centuries. The truly absurd part of all this: the night before, a comet had briefly been visible. Tiny, yet far more noticed by everyone. The comet was 6 times farther away than the moon itself, and therefore completely harmless. The real event stood directly above them. Not until 1989 does an astronomer, digging through Japan's National Archive, finally stumble on to the very first piece of this puzzle. But the truly decisive detail lies somewhere else entirely, aboard a ship sailing through the Indian Ocean. September 1770, at that very same moment in time, aboard a British research ship far out in the Indian Ocean. On board that ship, Captain James Cook and the young naturalist Joseph Banks, on their long voyage home from Australia. Banks steps out onto the deck and looks south. A dull red glow, barely visible just above the horizon line. Yet Banks measures it with real precision, 20 degrees wide, bearing south-southeast, and he carefully writes the whole thing down. He has absolutely no idea that on the other side of the world, the entire sky over Japan is burning red. To him, it remains just a brief scientific footnote among many others. He closes his journal and heads back down below deck. That very same night, Chinese officials record that exact same red light. So do Korean scholars far to the north, and Russian observers too. A single solar storm, somehow visible at once on two completely opposite hemispheres of the Earth. An extremely rare event indeed. And yet, Banks's note too sits unread and unnoticed for centuries, buried away in an old crate somewhere in London. Until today. Thanks to modern computers, Kyoto's diary and Banks's logbook suddenly tell the exact same story after all. It all begins with just a single sheet of paper, handwritten, more than 250 years old, and long forgotten. The priest had precisely noted down which constellations he saw beneath the red glow that night. That alone is enough to reconstruct everything. The constellation Cygnus, the swan, stood at exact zenith at 8 p.m. Cassiopeia stood at midnight, 60 to 70 degrees high. From this alone, astronomers can calculate something remarkable. The aurora reached down to 27 degrees magnetic latitude, farther south than ever recorded. But where did this enormous storm even come from in the first place? The answer lies in the sun itself, visible even from the street below. Chinese astronomers drew a detailed sunspot that very same week, enormous in size, bigger than anything ever documented before it. For comparison, the sunspot behind the famous 1859 storm had less than half the total area of the one from 1770. We've only tracked the sun's surface systematically since the year 1610. The year 1770 sits very near the start of that entire record. Two separate people on completely opposite ends of the world. Two fully independent measurements. In the end, the exact same result. 27 degrees. From all of this emerges what truly happened back in 1770. At least 3 massive plasma clouds struck Earth, one right after another. One uncomfortable question still remains unanswered. How strong was this 1770 storm really compared to what we know today? That's genuinely hard to answer, because Earth's own magnetic field back in 1770 was 3 to 10% stronger than it is right now. It wasn't until the year 2017 that a Japanese research team finally calculated the storm's true, actual strength in numbers. The result? 928 nanotesla. That number puts the 1770 storm just barely below the famous Carrington Event of 1859. But a fresh 2025 recalculation shows the error margins of both storms overlap quite heavily. Which one was truly stronger remains genuinely unresolved. What's certain, at least, is this: 1770 and 1859 clearly belong in the same category. Two of the strongest storms ever recorded, with one key difference between them. 1770 lasted a full 9 nights. Carrington, by sharp contrast, was over in less than 2. And if 1770 really was the stronger storm of the two, then something like this could return again at any time. Today, an outburst like that would strike the entire global power grid, satellites, communication systems, and we would not be ready at all. A priest in Kyoto simply wrote down the stars without ever knowing why, and in doing so, quietly saved this whole story.